7-8, we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials and also about FOIL. We're going to learn about FOIL here at the end. But 7-8, we're looking at multiplying those exponents and base numbers and variables. So what you get is something like this. You get 6y to the third times 3y to the fifth. Now, if you remember back when we covered exponents, when you're multiplying exponents, you actually add them if they have the same base. These ones do. They're both y. So that means I'm going to add the exponents. But first, let's go ahead and multiply the large numbers, the base numbers. So 6 times 3 gives me 18. Y. And now let's add that. So we get 3 plus 5, which is going to give me 8. And that's your final answer. Let's look at this one. 3mn squared times 9m squared n. Okay, let's do our large numbers first. So 3 times 9 is going to give me 27. Now let's go variable by variable. This is 1 because it doesn't have an exponent. So what's 1 plus 2? Well, that's going to be m to the third. What's 2 plus? Well, that's a 1. 2 plus 1, that's going to be n to the third. And that's your final answer. All right. Now remember, again, if they have the same base, like this, it's actually going to be x and then 2 plus 3, which would equal x to the fifth. Okay? If you remember that, then you'll do fine with the multiplying polynomials. All right. The hardest part about multiplying polynomials is remembering the distributive factor. That's when you have something that looks like this. Whenever you have a number or a number in variables, whatever's on the outside of the parentheses, you must do it to everything on the inside. This one's going to be what we call a triple rainbow, okay? It's 4 times this number, 4 times this, 4 times this. So let's work that out. 4 times 3 is 12. And we bring down the x squared because this one didn't have an x with it, so I can't do anything with the x part, but I can multiply the large numbers. Plus 4 times 4, which is 16, and again, just bring down the x. 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. And that's your final answer because you cannot combine any of those terms after that. Let's look at one a little bit harder. So we have 6pq times 2p minus q. Okay? Again, we have something on the outside of the parentheses here that we need to distribute. So 2 times the 6 and 6 times the 1. All right? 6 times 2 is going to give me 12. Oh, we do have a variable here in common. This is P1, this is P1, which gives me P2. But I don't have a Q, so the Q just comes down by himself. All right, let's do the next one. 6 times negative 1 is going to give me negative 6. There's no P, so the P stays. But what about the Q's? I have Q plus Q equals Q2. And that's my final answer. Okay, let's try one with a fraction in it, because I know that's everybody's favorite. So we have 1/2 x squared y times 6xy plus 8x squared y squared. Okay, again, let's distribute everything. So let's do the first one. What's half of 6? Well, that's going to give me 3. And now let's do our variables. x2 plus x1 is going to give me x to the third, because this is a 1 here, 1 here. So 2 plus 1. Now let's do the y. Okay, 1 plus 1 is going to give me 2. And you're done. Now let's do the next one. Well, what is half of 8? That's going to be 4. Now let's do the variables. 2 plus 2 equals 4. 1 plus 2 equals 3. And that's your final answer. Okay, now we get into ones that are a little bit more complicated. Let's look at something like this. We have 5r squared s squared times r minus 3s. Again, if you just remember the rule of distributive property, you should be fine. So let's do 5 times the r first, which is 5 times 1 gives me 5. Now I do have an r. This is r1. So what's 2 plus 1? R to the third. Does it have an s? Nope. So the s squared falls down. Now let's do the next one. Okay, what's 5 times negative 3? Well, that's negative 15. Is there an r? Nope. So we just keep the r squared from out here. But I do have s's in common. So we have 2 plus 1 gives me s to the third. And that's your final answer. Okay. What if you have one where you have 2 things to multiply? That's called FOIL. Let's talk about FOIL. FOIL is an acronym, okay, to help you remember which steps to take first. First step, we're going to do the first numbers. I like to call it the first numbers. Okay, the O stands for the outside numbers or outer numbers. The I stands for the inside numbers or the inner numbers, I should say, whichever you prefer. And the L stands for the last numbers. Okay, if once you get this little method down, solving these problems are very easy. So you get something like this, x plus 3 times x plus 2. All right, well again, anything in the outside needs to be distributive. All right, so these two are being multiplied together, so how do we do this? Well, let's do the first numbers. What are my first numbers? This x and that x. So what is x times x? Well, x times x gives you x squared. All right, let's do the outside numbers. Okay, the outside numbers are going to be your x, the outsides of the big picture. So we have x and 2. Okay, so we have x times 2, which is going to give me 2x. All right, now let's do the insides. These are going to be your inside numbers, which is going to be 3 and x. So 3 times x, which gives me 3x. And now let's do the last numbers, which is going to be your last numbers on each side, the 3 and the 2. So 3 times 2, which is going to give me 6. All right, well, that's great. Now, how do we put all this together? Well, we just go ahead and write it out. X squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. Combine like terms. I see real quick here that I can combine these two because they have the same terms. So the x squared falls down. There's no more x squareds. 2x plus 3x equals 5x plus 6. This is your final answer. All right, let's try one more. I'm going to just erase this so that way we can continue to use our little guidelines over here on the side and not have to write it each time. All right, we have 8m squared minus n times m squared minus 3n. All right, here we go. Let's do our first numbers. First is going to be the first of each set, which is going to be my 8 and my m squared. That's 8 times 1, which is going to get me 8. And remember what do we do with the exponents? We add them. So what's 2 plus 2? M to the 4th. There's my first one. All right. Now let's do my outside. Outside will be in green. That's going to be the outsides of the whole picture, which is my 8 and my negative 3n. Okay, let's multiply that first. 8 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 8 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 24. Now, I don't have an m squared to share with it, so that one comes down, and I don't have an n to share, so that just comes down as a new combination. Let's do my insides. Okay, my insides here are going to be these two inside numbers, which is negative 1 times 1, which is going to give me a negative, well, nothing there to do, so let's just go ahead and put m squared n, again going in descending order, the one with the exponent should go first. And let's do our last. That's going to be this guy and this guy. So negative 1 times negative 3 is going to give me positive 3. n1 plus n1, again remembering that we add these exponents, gives me n squared. All right, let's put this all together. So starting off with my first, we have 8 m to the 4th minus 24 m squared n minus m squared n plus 3 n squared. Well, I see I can combine these terms right here. Okay, 24 minus negative 24 minus 1 will give me negative 25. Can't do anything with this 8m to the 4th minus 25 now, m squared n, and we can't do anything with that last value either, so we just kind of slide that on over. All right, and that's how that goes. Let's try one more. Okay, so we have 2ab squared times a plus 4b squared. Let's do our first numbers. That's going to be 2a times a, which would be 2a squared. Again, because this is 1 and 1. So 1 plus 1 gives me 2. Now let's do our, well, first inside, outside, last. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our outside. All right, our outside numbers are going to be these two. So I have 2 times 4, which is going to give me plus 8ab squared. Now let's do our insides. So we have negative 1 times 1 is going to give me negative 1. And I'm going to put this in alphabetical order also. So we have ab squared. All right, and now I'm going to do my last, which is going to be these two. So I have negative 4, that's negative 4, that's 4 times negative 1. And then we have 2 plus 2 is going to give me b to the 4th. Let's combine my inside terms here, which are the same. So we have 8 minus 1 is going to give me 7ab squared. Bring down the rest on both sides. And that is your final answer. All right, I hope this helps.